Hi everybody, thank you for joining me for Coffee and Card at Home. This is the final week using the Daisy Lane set, and these were the cards that we made this morning on our Zoom sessions. So this is the replay on Facebook Live for anyone that missed it, or for anyone that wants to have a go at recreating these cards for themselves. So the stamp set that we're using is the Daisy Lane stamp set. And we're using the coordinating daisy punch as well. So that's what we're going to use. There's a couple of other bits and bobs that I'll mention as we go along, but we'll get started. So first of all, what we're going to need is a crumb cake base, and I've just cut this into a square, which is 10 centimetres by 10 centimetres. And just burnish my fold on that. And then we're using a piece of basic white cut into a square to go on the top there, and that's cut at 9.5 by 9.5 centimetres. So we're just going to put our card base to one side for a minute while we work on the background first of all. So we're going to get the background, which if I just bring back this one, you'll see that we need to put some leaves, and we've got a few little splatters and a sentiment to go on there. So I'm using the leaf from the Daisy Lane set, and I'm using Old Olive ink, and we're just going to stamp onto the two opposite corners. I might go on the opposite side this time. So we're stamping one in first generation, and I'm just going to stamp off once so we've got second generation. So I'm going to go in the opposite corner down at the bottom. So one in first generation, re-ink, stamp off, and one in second generation. So each time you stamp it gets lighter. And we've just done that in the two corners. So then we're just going to put some splatters in the corners there, and for that I'm using Crumb Cake ink, and because there isn't a splatter in the Daisy Lane set, I'm just using the little splatter which comes from Forever Fern. So that's what we're using to create that. And all I'm doing is I am inking it up once, and I'm just basically stamping until I've got no ink left really. So you'll see it's gradually getting lighter and lighter. Same over here on this corner. So just stamping till we've got no ink left really. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do on there before we do the flower is we're just going to stamp our sentiment. So I've just got It's Your Time to Shine, which is from the Daisy Lane set. So the majority of things that we're stamping with are from there. And because I've done it on the opposite side to my original, I'm going to put my sentiment on the opposite side as well, but you could put this at the top if you wanted to rather than at the bottom. Or one of the ladies today did a sentiment here and a sentiment here, just to break it up a little bit. So depends what sentiment you are using really. Then just before we do our flower, we're going to get our ribbon attached. So I'm just using some of the yellow ruched ribbon, which is really pretty, and we're just going to have a little strip of going across the centre there. So you don't need very much, but you just need a little bit to overhang, and we just want to pop it behind. So I'm just going to use a glue dot just to stick it behind the card. I'm going to try and get it so it's about halfway across the card. If you want to, you can obviously try and line it up with your grid lines. If you just press on it, it will just help to bend it around the card a little bit. And then we're just going to get another glue dot off. And just put that round on the other side. I'm just going to try and see if I can just kind of get it so it's in the middle. So it's at least straight anyway. And then you'll just see those two bits there caught in at the back. And then now that we've done that, we can actually get that stuck onto our card base. So I'm going to bring that back in, and I'm just going to put a little bit of Tombow all the way around the edge and get that stuck onto my card base. Just make sure that's equal all the way around, and then just make sure you've definitely caught in those bits just there. Now we're going to put that to the side for a minute because we're going to get our flower done. So I've decided to use a different, slightly different colour today when I did it, and I ended up with doing sort of all yellow. On here I'd put a little bit of extra colour on the centre, so I might do that again this time. So first of all, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to stamp our daisy, and because of how I've layered it up, we need to have 2 large daisies and 2 smaller daisies. So I'm using Bumblebee, it's one of my favourite shades of yellow at the moment, and just grab another piece to do the other one. It's really a really pretty stamp. You can see all the, obviously the line detail and things on there, which is really effective. Then I'm going to stamp 2 of the smaller daisy. So I might be able to fit these on here actually. Save a bit of card. So I've got 2 of those stamped as well. Now this is the slightly laborious part, all the cutting out. Now we are really lucky to have 2 daisy punches. Unfortunately I only have the one. I've got the large one, so that does mean that I can cut out my large daisy very quickly, but I'm going to have to do a little bit of fussy cutting to cut out my other one. So just with cutting this out, it's a bit of a tricky punch to line up. So if you just kind of squeeze it so that it grabs the card, it will just allow you then to move it ever so slightly until you're ready to punch. So that's one of my larger ones out. And I'm just going to, now I might need to just trim my card a little bit because of how I've stamped this one. Just to get it in the punch properly. Still not quite going to go. Try again. So like I say, just as you're putting it in, try and squeeze it a little bit. It will just give you that opportunity to just move it ever so slightly if you think you're not quite lined up. And when you're ready, punch. That's it. So if you have the smaller daisy, away you go, just punch it out. But like I say, unfortunately I haven't got that one at the moment, so I'm just going to have to do a bit of fussy cutting. Just have to be a little bit patient. So as I've been designing these cards, I have been really looking out the window really, and just having a look at what flowers are in my garden, or when I've been out on walks and things, and there are some really pretty daisies around in all sorts of colours. I think we all often think that they're white with yellow centres, but when you really start looking around, there are so many that have this beautiful shape in all sorts of different colours. So I think it's definitely a punch that could be used lots and lots. And you can really just use kind of everything you see in nature to really inspire you with how to colour it all in. So what I did earlier on this one that I made this morning was I just used the colour that I had, the yellow, and I didn't add anything else to it. But I think what I'm going to do on this one is I'm just going to take another ink pad and just show you how you can add a little bit of extra colour in. So there's a variety of ways we can do that. We can either take some ink with one of our blender pens and then apply that, or we can use a watercolour pencil and then just again blend that with one of the blender pens, or you could use one of our marker pens or Stampin' Blend. There's so many different ways to actually have a go at blending the colours. So basically, once I've got this cut out, we're layering up the daisies, so the two large ones together and the two small ones. It just gives our daisy a little bit more depth to it. Hi Tracy, hope you're okay. So Tracy's already made her cards because she was on the Zoom this morning. And very beautiful cards they were. So nearly there with the cutting out. Times like this when I think I need to get that punch. I don't usually mind fussy cutting too much, but isn't the easiest one to do. I think if you are cutting these out by hand yourself, just remember to keep your scissors as still as you can and then move the card, and then you shouldn't get any ragged edges. Right, okay, time to get these all put together. So we're going to put the two smaller ones together first, just with a little bit of Tombow in the middle, and then it sits on the top slightly offset so that we fill in those gaps that you can see. The Tombow just gives you a little bit of time to wiggle it into place. Hopefully that's going to stick down for a second. Then we're going to take our smaller ones and do the same with those. if you didn't want to be too perfect to make it look more like a real flower, you could go slightly offset so that you weren't exactly lined up. There we go, so that's the smaller flower done. So what we now need to do is we now need to attach that to middle. Now what you could do is you could put a dimensional on just to raise it up a bit. I didn't with my others. I think I might do this time just for something a bit different. Entirely up to you, but you should only need just one in the middle so that your petals are still free to move really. And then you're just going to stick that in the centre. Actually, I quite like that being raised up a little bit. So, like I said to you, I was going to show you how to colour in that middle bit. I'm just going to use watercolour pencils for this. I'm just going to take the pumpkin pie and I'm just going to colour in that centre bit. And then I'm just going to take a bit of colour out on each petal, not very much. I'm not being very neat at all. Oh, my pencil's broken. So I'm definitely not going to be very neat on that. But then all of that rough colouring does not matter, because we're going to bring in our blender pen and we're going to go over that colouring in that we've just done, and it will blend all of that pencil in with your ink beautifully and really effortlessly. Just give it a little bit more interest in the middle. You could add a little bit onto the outer petals as well if you wanted to. I'm just using my blender pen just to add a bit of colour on those outer petals, but you don't have to. There we go. So we're all ready now to stick that onto our card. So because I've used a dimensional there, I won't use a dimensional on the back. Otherwise it might get a little bit too bulky, especially if it's something that you're likely to post out. And I'm just going to stick that right in the centre on top of our ribbon. We just need to hold it a second to allow that glue to stick. Make sure it's not going to go anywhere. Difficult to tell if it's attached. Actually, whilst I wait for a minute, I'm going to add a little bit of Wink of Stella. So I'm just going to pop a bit of Wink of Stella in the centre of my flower and just a little bit on those petals. Gives it a little bit of shimmer, hopefully, which I don't know if you'll be able to see in the light or not. Bit tricky to tell. Okay, so final thing, I just want to make sure that that's stuck down. I'm just going to take my bone folder that I used for my crease, and I'm just going to go and I'm just going to pull up the petals and just curl them ever so slightly, not all of them, just some of them against my bone folder, and it just makes it a little bit more 3D. So if we bring back the other ones, there we go, 3 finished cards, slight differences with all of them, but working on the same basis. So just a quick recap of what we've used. So the stamp set that we've used is Daisy Lane with the matching daisy punch. We use the splatters from Forever Fern, The inks that we've used, we use Memento Black for our sentiment, Crumb Cake for our splatters, Old Olive for our leaves, and Bumblebee for our flowers. Then I added a little bit of pumpkin pie from a watercolour pencil, our trusty blender pen, which has to be one of my favourite bits of kit from Stampin' Up, and then a little bit of Wink of Stella to finish with, and of course everything stuck down with Tombow, a few glue dots and dimensionals, and not forgetting that little bit of Daffodil Delight Ruched ribbon as well. So I hope that's inspired you to have a go. Like I say, that is the final week of Daisy Lane. So next week is bank holiday. I'll be back after the bank holiday with our new set. And we are using the Elegantly Said stamp set from the new catalogue with the elegant tag punch for our month of coffee and cards. So I hope you can join me then to have a look at what we're doing with those. Anyway, thanks very much. I'll see you again soon. Bye.